The derivative function f prime is a function whose domain consists of those values of x such that the following limit exists. F prime of x equal limit as h approach 0, f of x plus h minus f of x all over h. Now, at the end, if you evaluate the limit f prime of x, it will give you an expression of x, or just a constant. It depends on what function you have. So whenever we define a derivative function, or we need to find a derivative function, you're not going to just have a limit sitting there. You have to evaluate the limit and get an expression out of it. What it's telling you is you have to eliminate that h by plugging in h equals 0. Now, you cannot do direct substitution because you see the h is sitting in the denominator. So most of the time we need to do some limit calculation technique. And another important point is to know that f prime is a function whose domain consists of those x where the limit exists. And you will see that the domain of f is not necessarily the same as the domain of f prime. Okay, it's not equal, not always. Sometimes it could equal, but you shouldn't have that expectation. You always need to check. And we can take a look at an example to see. So let's take a look at f of x equals square root of x. So what is f prime of x? Well, according to the definition, it's limit as h approach 0. F of x plus h. So what is that? It is square root of x plus h inside. Then you subtract f of x. Well, f of x is square root of x all over h. This is a definition of f prime of x. And we need to evaluate the limit to get the answer. And the answer, how do we find the answer? Is, well, direct substitution gives you a 0 in the denominator. So we need to multiply the top and bottom by the conjugate. And what is a conjugate? Well, it's the both square root, but the connecting sign is a plus instead of a minus. So x plus h and x. Do not change the first square root to square root of x minus h. The only change is the sign connecting the two terms. Okay? So multiply by square root x plus h plus square root of x. Now on the top, we use difference of square. Okay, so the first term square is x plus h. You just get rid of the square root. The second term square is just x. Then we divide it by h times square root of x plus h plus square root of x. Then you notice on the top, x plus h minus x is just h. So now we can have cancellation, and the remainder is a 1 because you're in a quotient. So now we have 1 over square root of x plus h plus square root of x. And now we can plug in h equals 0. Okay, right here. So then in the bottom, you get 1 over square root of x plus square root of x is just twice square root of x. And that is the derivative. Okay, that is f prime of x. So they are related, but the domain is not necessarily the same. What is the domain of the function f? Well, what is a restriction? You have square root of x. It required the radicand, right? Whatever's inside the square root to be at least 0. Okay? It can equal 0 because square root of 0 is 0. That is a domain. But what is the domain of the derivative? Think about it. Well, we have a fraction and we have a square root. So whatever's under the square root has to be greater than or equal to 0. But it's in the denominator. So what it's telling us is x cannot be 0. Okay, otherwise you get a 0 denominator. So the domain of the derivative is x greater than 0, which is not the same as the domain of the original function.